Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you guys here today. Welcome to Fixed Ops Focus, streaming live on Fridays at 4 p.m. My name is Steve Shaw, and I am with America's Fixed Ops Director, Mr. Dave Rogers. Welcome, Dave. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Steve? Great afternoon.
I'm always doing fantastic, as you are. Tell me, Dave, what is going on in the real world? I get accused of not being in the real world. And so tell me, what's going on in the real world, Dave Rogers?
Yeah, it's funny. We planned this podcast and we picked our topic ahead of time, right? And then just totally randomly during the week, conversations with multiple individuals in stores, and a service advisor asking me where he's going to go for the rest of his life, how he's going to be promoted, how he's going to do all this stuff. And, we start talking about different things. And, I think the store is very good. Technically, they do all the nuts and bolts and they do all that stuff there. And then he finally comes up to me, he goes, but we don't have any, and he starts stumbling. I go, what don't we have? He goes, we don't have a culture here. And I said, what do you mean you don't have a culture here? And he goes, I just don't think we have a good personality. And I'm not going to name the store, but I think it's funny because then I had one of the other managers tell me the same thing the next day. So I thought it was pretty ironic that, these topics and conversation come up recently and right before, almost like they're eavesdropping, Steve. It's crazy.
Well, I don't know about, I would say eavesdropping or listening. Do you know that in 6 months, right? We started in January and now it's June. We have over 10,000 subscribers across the interwebs, as well as we have streamed to over 100,000 viewers in 6 months, right? And I would say this, right? And maybe I'm going out on a limb, but I would say that we just might be setting the tone for podcasts, certainly fixed operations discussions around the industry right now. What do you think about that?
I think you're right on. I think that, we're nuts and bolts. We're, fundamentals. We're basic. We're not flashy. There's no shiny objects in this podcast. Maybe my forehead, my head is the only shiny object here. That's about it.
Well, I put a collared shirt on. I decided I'm going to upgrade today. Put a collared shirt on. Put a little logo on my shirt. And I know that since day one, when we started this back in January, you and I have been threatening to talk about management versus leadership. By the way, I just saw Bobby. I just saw Armin. Yo. So guys, drop comments in the chat. Bobby's here. All right. Armin was here a minute ago. The Jeep guy, Jeep Monster. Armin, he was on one of our podcasts recently. I know that face, bro. So we've been threatening. Destiny's here as well. Destiny, let's go. We've been threatening to have a discussion about management versus leadership, and I couldn't think of a better thing to discuss right now than that. What do you think?
Let's go, man. Let's go. You're up.
I'm up. Okay. So, because of my background and how I feel about things, I will take the leadership side. And if we're going to talk about management versus leadership, I think the first thing to discuss is, what is a leader? What is a leader? And I will just tell you that I think people have this all wrong. A leader is simply, the purest definition of a leader is somebody that has followers, right? You got to have followers to have a leader. And right. The great John Maxwell would say, if you don't have any followers, you're just out walking around, right? And so I think it's important to understand, as a leader, if I want to be a leader or I claim to be a leader, I have to have followers. And if I'm going to have followers, it's probably a good idea for me to do this one thing that I swore I would never say, but it's important for me to have a vision. It's important for me to share a vision, create a vision, and tell everybody what my vision is. And a vision, I know when I say that gets people all wigged out, right? Sometimes people look at me like I have two heads because I say vision. But a vision is just simply me as the leader saying, this is where we are going. This is where we are going. This is what I believe in. And I'm going to take you somewhere. And these are the set of standards. Leaders lead, manages, Armin says, right? And so I have a vision. I'm going to take you somewhere. These are the standards. These are my values that I believe in. And if you follow me, we're going to be better off down the road. And I always got to add in, Dave, for those of you who are new, most people don't know this, but I'm a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. And about a year ago, man, just about a year ago or so, the St. Louis Cardinals introduced this new president of baseball operations. And this particular individual, sign my hat. No, this particular individual sat down at his press conference day one, and he says, the Cardinals have a rich history. And he said, at their best, they set the standard for Major League Baseball. And I said, watching that press conference, I'm going to follow that guy. And he went on to say how he was going to make the Cardinals the best team in baseball and how they were going to set the standard. So my idea of a leader is someone will sit down, stand up in front of their people and express how and why and where we are going and how he or she plans on getting that done. That's what leadership is to me. What do you think?
Well, I agree with the leadership part of it, but the conversation that I kind of allude to all the time is I think there's a lot of people in this business that just don't manage. They don't manage processes. They don't manage systems. They have no idea how to put in a process of any shape or sort or any which way to do it. And, if you can't put in a process and you can't manage your people, then what are they listening to? I mean, I think you have to have both. But, I think when I started in this business, I started out learning the nuts and bolts. I learned the KPIs. I learned, productivity. I learned all the things that are basic management functions. And I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of it's lacking right now. I see on LinkedIn, I see all these people, they're, servant leaders. Everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be a leader. And I don't think sometimes they've earned that. I think that you have to get into the trenches sometimes. And, I never thought of myself as a leader when I was in the store. I think I eventually became one, but it wasn't up to me. Like I tell people all the time, I could think I'm the greatest father in the world, right? But if my kids think I suck, then I suck, right? So, I think it's delusional to think you're a leader. I think you earn that. And to your point, you're not a leader without followers, right? And, I think it starts with being a manager, doing the nuts and bolts, developing credibility, developing the skills to treat people, because you have to manage people as well as processes, right? And then you grow into the leadership role. That's just my way of thinking it. I don't, I think leadership and management, they should run hand in hand, but I don't know which one's more important. Today, I see a lot of people that just don't know how to manage their people. They think leadership is being a friend. They think leadership is everyone liking you. And that's not leadership. It's not leadership, and a leader, I think Armin just put it up. A good leader still needs to know how to manage. So that's why I think, I put the management up front first.
Well, and Destiny says leaders are not born, they're built. Yeah, I don't think you can give yourself a title and say, I'm a servant leader. You said it in one of our episodes before, is your people give you that title, right? Your people give you the title, the position as a leader because you're truly leading. I always want to start out as if I took over a new store, I would have that big meeting in the shop and I would talk about the values, what I stand for. And I would talk about the direction and where we're going and all the things that we're getting ready to do. Or even during our conversation with Armin, I would talk about the standards, the things that I believe in and say, guys, by doing these things, we're going to move our company, whether it's our company, whether it's our department, or if it's a group of, valets, we're going to be the best darn valets that there are, within the organization. And I'm going to set that standard. And then that's going to allow those people to follow me. And so when I do make those decisions or when I make those management calls, they have a reason to follow. They have a reason to believe in me.
No, I agree. But and I think that you earn that. You definitely earn it. I go into a new store. They don't know me from Adam.
Right.
I start evaluating, like Armin said the other day. You sit there 90 days. You look around. You make sure everything's good. Maybe you tweak a few things as you go along, and then you start developing that rapport and you start developing that with your people, and then eventually you become a leader. But to me, you can't just skip that step of not knowing how to manage. You just can't. In my mind, that's I just think one comes before the other. And I used to say that I used to say that when I was at the public. They always want to have leadership training. I said, where's the management training? When are you going to teach a manager? When are you going to teach a desk guy in sales how to manage his force? When are you going to teach him how to, manage his receivables? Where are those lessons? Because I could be the biggest rah-rah guy out front selling cars. Doesn't mean I'm a good manager. Doesn't mean my books are going to be clean. Doesn't mean my receivable schedules aren't going to be a mess. So, I think you have to have that. I think you have to have both. And to me, the management just comes first. That's all.
Well, and John says, what are your thoughts on coaching, right? And I think that goes hand in hand. You could be a great leader and a poor coach. I mean, or you could be a great manager and a poor. I don't know how you could be either one. I should rephrase that, right? I don't know how you could be a great leader and or a manager if you're not a good coach, right? Because I think that accountability piece has to come in. But that's really where I would say, from a leadership perspective, our standards, we have to have a set of standards that everyone can believe in. And then I, as that person, have to lead the charge in following and setting those standards. Because if I say I value customers, or if I value, if I have integrity as value, and then I go and do something that rips a customer off, or I go and I treat one of my employees bad, well, I just lost all my credibility. I'm no longer that leader. I just lost my credibility. I'm not even a manager at that point. I'm just the guy standing there with a title, and that's where I think a lot of people end up.
Well, there's a lot of people floating in that ether, in that little zone that never Neverland, or whatever you want to call it, right? But I think when if you go into a store, and I've seen this before. I mean, I've seen people, everybody loved, everybody wanted to follow. They did, but there was no processes. It was helter skelter every day. And so what are you leading them to? Like, what is the goal there? Just to be a mess in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? But you're right. The leader, or whoever, the dealer principal, the general manager, whoever it is, sets the culture, the vision, whatever, the motivation. I don't think you could do change very well or successfully without having some respect of leadership. I think it's tough. You got to have buy-in to make change. But I've seen it. Like I said, I've seen it before. You walk into a store and it's a mess with no processes. You ask people, where's the paperwork go? There's no paperwork flow. There's, and those are the things I think, in my opinion, are lacking in most cases, most stores I go into. And I think that's where a lot of the focus needs to be on how to learn how to be a manager first.
I'll join you on that that idea, that conversation, that yeah, we have to be both. I think the leadership and the management, they do go side by side. And I don't even think it's a fair question, really, which is why it's such a great debate. Which is better, a leader or a manager? And I think that in our world, we are asking our service managers, our fixed ops directors, really to be both. I mean, they wear production hat, they wear sales hat, they wear management hat, they wear the plumbing hat, and then they wear the hat of the leader. And we're asking that man or that woman to do all of those roles. And so I think it's very difficult at times to become an expert, the best at each and every one of those roles, right? I think that's the challenge in our industry right now.
And I think it's a big challenge. I think that we're lacking in both of these areas. I really do think we're lacking in both areas. But, when I walk into a store and I used to just see broken processes left and right, and, a manager that's been there for 10, 12, 15 years, and there's no process. When we had the CDK outage last year, what an incredible learning thing that was for me to see. I had managers that, even though they were given instructions by me on exactly what to do on a daily basis, they had no clue how to do a handwritten repair order.
Right.
They had no idea. I had parts managers that decided that they were going to keep a running list in their parts department of all the parts they sold with a VIN number, right? And then when the computers came up and you started writing ROs, they had no way to cross-reference any of this stuff. And they were given step-by-step instructions, right? And, I blame myself that I probably should have went to every store every day and just double-check their process. But I assume somebody that's been there 15 years, the employees did rally around this guy. He was a true leader. People do work for him. Didn't have one iota of common sense on how to do a process of a handwritten repair order. Like, I'm going to tell you, a fiasco was a fiasco. And then I had other guys other guys that were nuts and bolts. They were right on it. They knew what to do, and those stores went smoothly. And
I guess you could say sometimes if I have a great leader, what do? We'll follow him right off the cliff, right?
That's exactly what happened, right?
Exactly I will run through walls for you. All those cliches, right? If I have a great leader, right? And so I'm doing that, but then again, you're right. If the management fundamentals don't equate or don't hold up to that, then certainly I might not be a good leader, but I do have lots and lots of followers, right? And so I think we got you got a guest that you'd like to bring on to talk about that. So why don't you tell us about our guest and who'd you bring aboard? I think it was a great debate and a great conversation that probably we're not going to solve in this hour. So Dave, tell us who you brought with you today.
So I'm going to tell you. So Bob Orozco, I'm going to tell you a little personal story first. So Bob and I actually grew up in the same town, same grade, same class. We would have graduated high school together had I not moved after my sophomore year. He was into wrestling. I was into football and probably some narcotics and stuff. So we didn't hang around a lot, but we knew each other. Fast forward, I was working for the public and they bought the store he's in. I didn't even know he was in the car business. I had no idea. I knew his brother was because I bought my first new vehicle from his brother, who was a salesperson. But anyway, yeah, we wound up at a conference one time and we started chit-chatting and we brought him on board to the Piazza Auto Group. So Bob Orozco is right now, he's our general manager of Land Rover Wilmington. He can tell you more about how he got where he's at and his transition, because I know he came up from the bottom just like I did. Yeah. Welcome, Bob.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Like Dave said, both of us long time in the business. I think this year becomes 47 years. It's funny when you think about half the guys who work for us are not even that old, Yeah. It's crazy, but it's what we got. I started in a lot through the parts departments, worked my way up through parts and into service manager, parts manager, parts director, service director, and eventually, got my opportunity with the Piazza Group as a GM. It's just, it's been a lot of things are different, but a lot of things stay the same. It's basics, what you got to do. And I agree with what you guys are saying about leadership and management. I kind of feel the way guys forget to lead. I think it's lead by example. Try to go be at work early, be there on time, not looking to run out the door. Show them how you handle customers. Hopefully they watch and learn. And for me, the biggest reward is when you get them to grow in their career. But that takes time. And I always feel it's easier to grow your own employees sometimes than to try to get one from another dealership that has problems already.
Absolutely. Well, tell us, Bob. I'm always fascinated because I was one of those guys kind of in your camp that I grew up in fixed operations, and I got to a point in my career. Welcome, Dave. Thank you. I got to a point in my career where I thought I wanted to make that next step, right? I was a fixed ops director. I had done everything, I counted parts, did everything in my career, but I just couldn't make that leap, right? And I know there's so many guys out there that are amazing and have this fixed ops background and they're talented FODs, but how do we get from FOD to GM? Like, tell us about that step. I'm assuming that there's a lot of leadership and or management involved in that, as well as probably luck.
Yeah, it was. And I think a lot of it was working with the right people. I always wanted to learn what the other managers are doing. And the biggest thing is with the accounting office or the controllers, a lot of service managers, parts managers have no clue how what you do on an RO affects the office and affects the bottom line of the store. So if you learn other positions while you're growing, it makes you more valuable, and it just helps you put the whole puzzle together when you're the guy on the other side of the fence. And a big thing, I think, in our store anyway, is there's no walls. Some stores, you always have that wall between service and parts or sales and service. We all work together. We're one dealership. We're not 4 departments. And that's what, I try to do that every day with everybody, and just keep everybody motivated and try to show them the goals, what we're trying to accomplish. And like I said, reward them when they get to that next level.
I think when we brought Bob on, he was a fixed ops director for the Jag Land Rover store that we had just bought, and the previous guy left, and we had some turnover and stuff, and Bob came in, and I think, Bob, you live probably 75 miles away, right? You're driving from Jersey to Pennsylvania. Didn't know the area. And, he rebuilt the store, put some good people in place, didn't replace everybody, which was, I think it was a testament to his ability. And then what he did was he built that place up, structured it. And then I think the biggest thing he did was he earned the owner's trust, right? I mean, Bob, you don't become a GM in a family-run business from fixed ops unless they think you can do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what a lot of people forget, everybody hears the word absorption, has no real understanding what that is. But when COVID hit and people weren't selling cars and we were only fixing cars, people learn real quick, that's, hey, the back of the store is paying the bills. And you got to keep that going.
Awesome. I got to say hi I got to say welcome to everybody on Facebook. It looks like we got a few comments streaming in from Facebook. So Katie, great to see you. Brian's over there. Hey, listen, I got a question, Bob. You said, so you took the walls down between all the departments, right? As a service manager, parts manager, we're always trying to break down those barriers between parts and service. But then, often there's that sales to service wall. There's no, those guys in the back of the store, or there's those, sometimes there's walls between new and used cars, right? We got the used car department down, we got a whole different store for used cars or whatever. So how did you, though, create that team unity, or that unity between all of the departments, under one roof?
Well, it starts with just in the morning. When I walk in the morning, I don't just go into my office and stay there. I go in. My first thing I do, I put my briefcase down, whatever, and I walk right back to the service lounge. And I'm there before service opens up. They weren't used to that before with other people. So I'm there early. I talk, say hello to everybody there. I walk in the shop, see my shop foreman, or any techs that are out there, and then eventually I make my way into the parts department. 9 o'clock, I'm walking into the accounting office, saying good morning to all the girls. What's going on? Anybody need me for anything? And we just pretty much, you got to be visible. You got to be like, I'm not in my office. I'm walking around. I could be walking out in the parking lot, greeting customers, or, you got to be part of the team. You can't just be somebody, a figurehead, and be in the office and show up at 10 and leave at 2 kind of thing.
It's funny. It's one of my tips of the day for the GMs all the time is to get out there and walk through the shop and walk through parts and say hi to people. And it's such a rare thing. A lot of guys, GMs, they park in a handicapped spot right outside the front door, right? They walk in their office, shut the door, and they're not out. They're not walking around. You see it all the time. All the time.
Yeah. So. And there's a lot of times Dave will call me at 7 o'clock in the morning. He knows I'm sitting there. We're talking business. Other guys aren't even, awake yet.
He calls me at 7 o'clock in the morning as well. And I'm like, why are you calling me this early? I'm not even out of bed yet.
I'm not on the road at 6:30, man. I'm being lazy. That's just the way I look at it, Yeah,
what's the team's response been, Bob? I mean, it's amazing. You're following, you're probably leading, you were doing it long before Dave ever gave a tip of the day, but what's the response from your technicians when they see you, in the shop? What's the response from that valet who's out there in the back cleaning cars, or the parts counter person? I mean, we give those guys there's only one person that gets less love than a parts guy, and that's a body shop guy, right? And so we don't give those guys in part. And now to think that you came up through parts even is, gosh, that just warms my heart. How do people feel about that when they see you?
They like it. I mean, they sit around, I go back to the detailer. I'll sit down. How you doing? How's your weekend? What's going on? And he just has a big smile on his face. Or, we buy lunch on a Saturday. Say, hey, did you eat yet? Come back. Make sure you get something to eat before you, I got to finish this car for you. No, go eat first, and then you can finish the car. And they're part of the team. They're not just the lot guy, and they're not just the valet. Every valet knows I'm going to say hello to him. There's nobody I don't see in the morning that I don't say, how you doing? Good morning. And they say the same to me. And it just it's repetition. Everybody knows to greet everybody. And from there, it goes to the customers. So they know I'm going to do it. So now they see me greeting everybody. They walk up and they're expected to say hello to everybody walking through the door, and just, you need help, anything we can do for you, make them feel at home.
Awesome. I think one of the other things that plays in your favor, and I know it did mine, and I remember a couple of times when you had to do this, he was short when he was running the JLR store in Pennsylvania. Parts manager went out with a health issue, right? And there's Bob. He just goes over and starts doing parts stuff because he knows parts, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets transferred down to the store down there, and it's a different DMS, so he has to learn Reynolds, which he knew a little bit from his previous job. But the best thing is that the people in parts and service know they can't blow smoke up your butt.
Yeah.
The first thing he
They-
did was, right, he did everything you trained everyone to do there, Steve. Open our rows, what's going on, right? Tell them. I mean, they didn't know what hit them. They had no idea what hit them.
And then the last day of the month, nobody goes home till we have a chat, 3:00. Let's still go through them. And it gets to the point where they know. They start 3 days earlier. They know Bob's going to ask me this before the end of the day. Let's get ahead of it. I want to get out of here on time. I don't want them keeping me here an hour after we close. But hey, we do it, and they expect it. And even in the mornings with the CSI, the writers go, they open it up, they have their conversation because they know I'm going to look at it. So they want to see it before I see it because they know I'm going to see it. But they're on top of it again, and we stay on top of it. And we just it's just expectations. Once they get in the rhythm, and it gets to the point where I want them to think how, and I would do something if I'm not there. Like today's my day off. I'm not in the store. What do I do? They shouldn't have to panic and freak out, but I'm always a phone call away. But we get the processes down, like Dave said, and that's how you do it. And that's one advantage I tell anybody coming from fixed ops. We do processes. We leave a paper trail. And the office loves that. On the sales side, they just want to move on to the next customer coming through the door, and they forgot about the guy who just rolled out 10 minutes ago. And it's a totally different world.
Well, you said a great word there. I use the word standard. You said expectations. When you set those standards, you set those expectations with your team. We had a comment earlier about coaching. How do we hold people accountable in today's day and age, right? I mean, I have my way of coaching. I teach coaching, but I'm not necessarily a line manager or certainly a general manager. How do you coach people when they're out, when they're not meeting expectations or they're below expectations? How do you do that in today's day and age? That's a big deal.
It's a lot harder than it used to be. You would just in the old days, a couple 4-letter words and you throw them out the door and you didn't worry about it. Nowadays, you got to do it in pen and paper. You got to write it up, and you got to, but like Dave said, I'm not looking to fire everybody. And they kind of, I've gone into new stores and everybody's, oh, he's coming in, he's going to bring his whole new crew in. I'm looking to help you. And most of the guys, if they listen and then they see, hey, I listen to him, I'm doing what he says, I'm making more money. Maybe he does know what he's talking about. And that's the bottom line. You got, if you listen to us, we'll help you. And the goal is to put more money in your pocket, whether you're a technician, whether you're a parts counter person, or, or a salesperson. And it's all, you got to earn the trust, and you got to believe, you got to sell the program and get them to buy in. And unfortunately, sometimes you can't get them to buy in, but you got to just get a new candidate. But we try to do our best before we get to that point.
Yeah, you've done a pretty good job of filling the gaps too. I mean, service manager at the store he's at now had a bad motorcycle accident, and the GM's in the back end service running service department in between deals and in between stuff, and then groomed the guy's replacement. He couldn't go back to work, and you got a guy and you groomed him, and we didn't miss a beat. Actually, we did better. That store actually went up, and I don't know. I mean, again, they all rallied around everybody, and it was a great testament to the leadership in the store. So kudos to you, Bob. It was a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on, along those lines, right? I mean, so you were able to bring in new people, right? And I've heard this a couple times now. People are rallying around you and so on. How do people feel when somebody might not make it, right? And we do have to make that decision to let somebody go. What's the response from your team? Do you get angry letters? Do you get praise? Do they thank you? What's the response when somebody really is just not going to make it anymore? We have to make that decision.
They kind of know. I mean, we try to do our best to save the person to get to that point. But by the time it gets to that point, I think a lot of them are saying, well, I wish you would have did it faster. But in today's day world, you got to go through HR. You got to do it the right way. You got, you try to get somebody, to turn the leaf or do what you need. But it's a lot tougher than it used to be. Some of this younger generation, they want to come in and they want to start at the top. They don't want to work for it. They don't want to work a little extra. And that's the thing. Like in our days when I started and Dave started, we just worked hard. We wanted to get to the next level. We worked hard. That's how we earned the managers or the owners respect to give us the next job. Nowadays, it's almost the opposite. They want the job first and the money first, and then they'll show you maybe what I can do. And it's a different environment right now. So just unfortunately, you got to go through the people, grow your own and build up. It takes time.
Well, Bob, it's been amazing. Gosh, it's been great to have you here today. Hopefully, other people will see, your growth, your transition, and what you've been able to do. especially coming from the fixed side. I love hearing from guys coming out of fixed. You came from parts to service and then into, so that's even a bigger kudos to you for making all of those transitions. And just want to say thank you for coming, and appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, guys. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bob.
Every store needs a Bob, right? Every store needs a Bob. I like that, right?
Is that what the comment was?
Yeah, the comment said every store needs a Bob. All right.
I always say you can never have enough Daves, but I like that.
Love it, Bob. Good job. Good job. Dave, we have a new segment on our show that we've never had before, and I'm calling it our vendor or our profit partner. And so today I am bringing on Michael Keene from Chameleon Limited. Mike happens to be the vice president of sales, or his fancy title is chief revenue officer. And Mike runs Chameleon Limited, Chameleon AI. They do analytics. So let's bring Michael Keene on to the show. There he is now. What a handsome guy. Welcome, Michael. How you doing, sir? Great to have you.
Doing great. Thanks for having me, sir.
Awesome. Well, you've been in the green room back there. We'll talk about Chameleon here in a few minutes, but what do you think, Mike? I know you've got an extensive background in fixed operations, and you've been, fixed ops manager. You've been in, outside services, fixed ops manager, and now you're managing Chameleon. I would say, tell people quickly about Chameleon. What do you guys do, and how, and then give us your thoughts on leadership. I mean, you got a huge background in fixed ops. Tell us about Chameleon real quick, and then leadership. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So at Chameleon, what we're trying to do is simply bring clarity into fixed operations. We do that just simply one insight and one click at a time. It's as simple as that. Where next level innovation meets real world dealership needs. It's the easiest way I can describe it. And what I can tell you is that in reality, the data doesn't make you a leader. It clears the way for one. Management is simply what you do to people. Leadership is what you do for them, in my mind. And to further add to the conversation, you can be handed a title. You can't be handed influence unless you're, on Instagram and much prettier than the three of us.
Right on.
So tell me,
But,
go ahead. Tell me, part of the conversation earlier, obviously, is the management part of it. And so tell us how Chameleon would help the manager, maybe who's new or doesn't know, some of the metrics and stuff. Because I think I remember when I saw your product in NADA, there's a lot of helpful little tidbits in your product.
Yeah. So, we're not here to turn someone into a leader. We're here to remove the roadblocks to help them become it. If you look at what a service manager does with their time, they're firefighting, they end up being very reactive. And what we're trying to do is give them as much proactivity to be able to truly influence people and guide them down the path that a basic manager can create, but giving them the time to truly lead their staff, whether that be out on the drive, influencing the way that they're working with and talking to customers, but more importantly, getting them out from behind the desk where the average service manager, to be a good leader, has to dig deep into the DMS or utilize some analytical program where they're just looking for enough insight in order to be that proper influence to their staff. And if we do this right, what we're trying to do is turn a manager who is counting hours into a leader that makes those hours count.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. I am a huge fan of analytics, and Dave and I have had these conversations. I'm kind of an opcode junkie, right? So I love looking at opcodes, and you guys really have something unique where you're not like running reports particularly, but I have a dashboard. And so I can really just go in and look at my dashboard, and I can see really data at my fingertips. Talk about that from a management role. I mean, what a great tool that would be for a manager.
We're just trying to make it as easy as possible, regardless of the tenure and position. Attrition is a real thing in the industry, whether we're talking about the front end or the back end. We're seeing it everywhere. A service manager in itself has got a life at maybe 13 months, I think was the last NADA number that I'm just going to throw out there. But, dealers are promoting people faster than they can develop them. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to make it very easy for a manager who often is promoted because of their ability as an advisor. without a tremendous amount of training as they move into this new role. So if we can make the data clearer so that they're able to gain those insights and then again, truly coach and lead those people within the processes, I think an advisor a lot of times is viewing their ability just based upon their paycheck. And they have such a wider influence within the health of a dealership. If we can give them access to those numbers, it really does make their job that much more, I guess, clear within the health of the department. And what we are doing specifically to help with that is allowing managers to feed that, somebody hit it earlier, is that transparent accountability. Essentially, everybody inside the system knowing from top to bottom where they stand and what a good job looks like, giving them the data and then applying a customized benchmark set by the store, by the manager, by the group, if that's what it is, clearly defines that role, and they don't necessarily have to wait for the manager to run the report. Similar to the way that Bob was pointing out the fact that the advisors a lot of times are logging in very quickly so that they can get that CSI number before Bob asks them about it. It would be great if an advisor understood exactly where their metrics were prior to a manager giving them a review, which, if we're going to be honest, in this industry happens once every 18 to 24 months.
So your program is for the advisors too. It's not just for the managers, not just for the GM. It's for everybody in the department.
Yes, we all at Chameleon come from behind the desk, if you will. We've all, from our CEO straight down through most of our salespeople, they have been that service manager. They understand what is desired and what is needed in that role. So what we're trying to do, again, is just uncover as much insight as we can to the entire department. So whether you be a dealer principal or a general manager who does not come from fixed operations, it gives you enough insight as you apply your own benchmarks to be able to see where success is occurring and where opportunity is maybe leaking down the side or out the door.
Chrissy's worried right now. She said she's in her 13th month right now, so she's not sure what's going to happen. She's going to happen right here. So Chrissy, well, no one's gunning for you, right? I think
she's one of my managers.
Normal turnover, right? And a Chameleon will enhance that, right? We want you to be here for a long, long time. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
If done right, what I can tell you is accountability does become a conversation and not a confrontation. But that only occurs when that expectation is transparent. And, I'm just going to utilize the fact that I commonly would spend time on the drive and you would watch service managers pull advisors in for one-on-ones. And as they did it, a lot of times advisors had no idea how that meeting was going to go because they couldn't dig deep enough into their own analytics, their own performance, and to understand how good of a job they were or were not doing. So it's a scary walk back from the drive into the manager's office when those are occurring. If all of those numbers were transparent and available at a moment's notice to anybody, the role becomes clear, the responsibilities become owned, and that's really what we're trying to do.
Well, I think that's pretty amazing. I think that's pretty amazing to give the advisor that information. It's awesome. I mean, often we share with them their hours per RO or dollars per RO, or, maybe we send a report to them regularly or not regularly. It could be hit or miss in the dealership. But if I had a dashboard like you're talking about that I, as an advisor, could actually go in and look at, I think that's a win for everybody for sure, right? And then I think that helps a guy like Bob or Armin who's on here, or Chrissy, or somebody to say, we're giving you this tool, we're training you, and so you should have that information at your fingertips. So very powerful, and kudos to you guys for making that happen. What's a response from an advisor? Like if an advisor has this tool, right? I know you guys are in lots of stores. What has somebody said to you? What's a response from an advisor like for having this info?
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the most exciting things is when we actually launch from management into the advisor role. As we start to unroll it or reveal it to advisors, we'll do them commonly in groups, right? Dave doesn't want me to pull all the advisors off the drive at one time. So what you end up with are, say, 2-3 groups that come through the class very quickly. And then as we go back downstairs, what you're able to see is the competitiveness restored within your core a group of advisors. So when they get a chance to have a dashboard where they get color-coded information along with that continual building of I'm just going to say something like discounts. You get a comparison across the board of, let me see where your discounts are. This is where mine are. And they're not able to just compare paychecks, but yet compare where opportunity lies. And again, where success is already occurring. We color code it so it's very simple. So that, again, regardless of tenure and position, you could be a brand new advisor and not understand a single metric, but everybody understands green, yellow, and red. And looking at how much green you have on your chart with the ability to customize those benchmarks to each individual advisor or to the group, whether we're looking at the quick lane or the mechanical side or main shop advisors, they very quickly can compare themselves to their peers. And as a manager, if you're ladder stepping those goals, you truly do get even a very senior advisor that can compare his dashboard to a 1 week express advisor. And that does magnitudes to both help the manager lead and to set the expectations for advisors. Because the one thing I can tell you is you don't have to be a manager to be a leader.
Awesome. Dave, I think we're coming to the end right here. It's going to be about time for that GM tip of the day. But Michael, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. Dave, any parting thoughts for Michael before we move on to the GM tip of the day?
No, I just think that, you're taking the data side and you're turning it to coach and help the humans, which is good. I mean, I think that's what you need, right? I think the red, yellow, green is brilliant, right? So they could see instantly on the screen. I'm sure you get some coaching between the advisors too, right? So you get a little bit of,
yes,
I got to believe that there's a little bit of that. Hey, this is what I did to get better at that. So I think that's a great tool. It's a great idea.
Well, you interject a little bit of AI into that as well. And what it does is it frees up those senior managers to be able to truly lead again. And whether we're talking about an individual advisor getting that level of insight or a brand new manager or even a senior manager, we're freeing them up to simply lead the charge so that they can become an example, not just a figure behind the desk.
You had to go and say it. You had to bring in the term AI, right? We couldn't go a whole episode without saying AI, right?
Well, I got to get invited back to the next session on that.
Of course, Chameleon AI, all right? So we have to talk about AI, but thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. We love the program. All the research I've done, it's outstanding. And so I would encourage everybody to check. What's the website? Chameleon Limited?
ChameleonLimited.com.
Awesome. It's limited spelled out, chameleonlimited.com. Everybody check out the Chameleon Limited website. It's a great tool and help turn your advisors, give them the tools that they need to be successful. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for the time, guys.
Oh, great seeing you.
Dave Rogers.
I think,
wow.
I think that was the
tip of the day.
Wow.
Time to wrap this. Well, I guess we could wrap up and talk for a minute before you do that.
Yeah, I think the that tool is pretty good. I think that the conversation was very good. The advice I've known. I think that the coaching part of that, the true lower client AI is the future. Of course it is. But I've had advisors years ago. Had before I joined this group, there was an advisor that was promoted to a manager in one of the stores, and he was a manager in January, February, March, whatever. And sitting down with him, we realized he didn't know the formula for gross profit. He'd been an advisor for 19 years. And we talked, like, where do you think gross profit comes from? It comes from a report, is what he thought it was. Had no idea what the calculation was. And then, that's an indictment on the previous managers, the general manager, everybody that was in the store before him. But, it was a pretty eye-opening experience when you sit there and look at somebody that's been doing this and paid on gross profit for 19 years and not even know how the calculation is where it comes from. So, I'm never surprised by anything I see in this business. I really never am. But I think a tool like that, or any kind of tool that you can use to coach your people with instead of rolling up and smacking them in the nose with, I think that's the difference.
What's funny is we all work with a huge group right now, and you can't be in 30 stores at once. I have a lot of stores in our university network and a lot of people we train with, and so we get to see a very wide. I use Chat GPT to write formulas. Good job, Armin. But there's so many different ways of looking at it, and I think the idea of AI or the idea of having a dashboard is so powerful. It's like, well, I don't have to. What if my manager doesn't come in today, or what if this happens and I don't get my numbers, or I get maybe I want to look at other things, right? And so having the ability to have a dashboard or having the ability to look at those things and then ask questions about those, it can only make a dealership more successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think again it goes back to what the initial discussion was, right? So do you have the tools to manage your people, and then do you have the skills to be a leader? I mean, I think they go hand in hand. I don't think you could do one without the other. Maybe you could be a good leader and be a terrible manager, but not everybody's Steve Jobs either, right? So that's there's a perfect example. He was a great innovator, great guy running a company, but people hated working for the guy, right? He just wasn't the best manager. He wasn't, but he was a great innovator.
Well, Josh wants to know how come he says a great interview. He says, but why has Dave got a better tan than me? I'm not sure how that can happen. I'm going to be headed to the Keys in a few minutes, so I'll work on that, Josh, to make sure I look a little bit. I'll look a little bit better the next time that I see you. Hopefully, I'm not sunburnt as well. You know what? To wrap up your comment, if we all had a bunch of Bobs, and if we had more Bobs in our organization, what would it be like if we had more Bobs in our organization? That's what it's all about. Dave, what do you say? Why don't we wrap this up? We got a few minutes. Talk about the GM tip of the day. What would you say? To that? Maybe if Bob's still there, we could bring Bob back in and talk about a tip of the day for general managers. And what would we say to general managers that are either fixed ops managers in waiting or somebody that doesn't have that experience? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Bob hit a couple key points, and I followed the same path, went from fixed ops to being a general manager. I did when I was a service manager or a parts manager at one point. I learned other positions in the dealership. I made friends with the women in accounting, the controller, right? I wanted to learn accounting. What am I doing today that affects you, tomorrow when the job stack runs? I tried to learn from the sales department. I actually did sell cars for a period of time to learn how to sell cars and how they did things up there. So, I think you have to reach out. You have to expand your knowledge. One of the things that's lacking, I think, nowadays is people aren't students of the game. They don't want to learn. They don't want to invest any time in crafting their skills. And I think, you have to be ready and able if that position opens up. And it's not always going to happen, right? Your fixed ops guy, they don't always look at us first for the GM job. But I'd say for dealer principals and GMs out there, why don't you take somebody under your wing, and if they have some potential, bring them along, coach them up. See what kind of leader you are, and see if you can, start spawning the next generation of general managers underneath you that, and don't overlook the fixed ops guys. Cause I think, like Bob even said, we're about processes. And, yes, Chrissy, you are what is it? Oh, the first female GM for Piazza. That's her goal. Yeah. That's her thing. So
that'd be fantastic. Let's bring Bob back in. Let's bring Bob back in and see if he's got one idea. Bob, yes. I'm glad you're still here. Thank you so much. Yeah, give us one idea. Like Dave gives a GM tip of the day. You're a GM. Give our GMs one thing that they can do based on our conversation, based on things you thought, heck, based on stuff that you do. What's one thing that our audience can do today? Like it's 4:00 and here on the East Coast. Yeah. At least by Monday when they show up for work, what's one thing they can do today or tomorrow and implement to help improve their performance?
I think, like I said a little bit earlier, just touch all the points of the whole dealership. Don't just forget, the guys in parts. Most GMs think the parts department's where you throw all the garbage, where you put the Christmas ornaments up. You forget about it. It's just as important as your service department, as your detail shop, as your lot guy. You got to touch all the points and just and get involved with everybody. Keep everybody involved. Awesome.
Dave, any other thoughts with Bob before we wrap this up?
No, like you said earlier, we need more Bobs. That's obviously, we need more Bobs. So
Tony will be upset if so. Bob, you can't go anywhere. You just have to clone yourself. Yeah. So Bob, you need to make your AI clone so everybody can have a Bob in their store. Again, thanks, Bob. I appreciate you being here. Dave, let's kind of sum up this whole thing and let's let everybody go home today. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. So I think you lost. I think management's more important than leadership. I think you solved that case.
Hey, you know what? If we encourage some people, and I know, like I said, I sometimes get carried away. I have pie in the sky, but I think it's so important for people to be able to stand in front of their men and women, great managers. If you're a great manager already, stand up in front of your people and say, "This is my vision. This is what I believe in. This is where we're going," and watch how many people want to follow you, right? When they know the direction, they know where we're headed, right? When they know where this organization is going and it's going to be better, we're going to have better customers, we're going to have more money and so on. And you can articulate that in your way. Obviously, it doesn't have to be Steve's way, but if you can articulate it in your way, so everybody knows it's going to be better tomorrow and the next day, and especially in this day and age, right? It's going to be better tomorrow. Man, I will follow you through that wall right off the cliff to the other side. That's really my thoughts on that. But you're right. It is important to have a great manager to apply all of those particular principles. Anything else, Dave?
No, I think we covered it. I think live episode number 50. I think appreciate everybody for joining us. There was a bunch of comments coming in, which was very nice to see, and looking forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Well, just so everybody knows, we are Fixed Stops Focus. We stream normally on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We've got about 10,000 subscribers across the interwebs. And Dave, I did the math because I was a manager. I did the math, and we got over 100,000 views out there. So there's a lot of people out there. We're causing a ruckus. We're causing some discussion out there. So I say we shoot for another 50. How's that sound?
Sounds perfect. I'm in.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing everybody again next Friday. Fixed Stops Focus streaming live.